because Mukesh Ambani is handing his $220 billion empire to his kids. Now, if this was you in his shoes, or on the kids' shoes, when are we going to Vegas?
Are you buying Vegas with that, or what are you doing with Vegas exactly?
So, Ash, you sent this thing on the chat about this Teacher's Pet podcast. Now,
Yeah.
I've only read about it. Neil, you've listened to it. I think some of you other guys have listened to it. Tell us the story, because this guy just got acquitted, right?
Did he get acquitted?
No.
Follow that.
No, he got
He didn't get
convicted.
acquitted.
Oh, you get convicted? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Mate.
You didn't even mix it up. You got completely wrong, mate.
Controversy corner.
No more
You got
wasabi for you, bro. You had too much. It's out of your system.
Oh my goodness.
Drunk ass.
He got convicted. So tell us about it.
All right.
There's obviously
Oh, shit.
massive publicity, because
In the
what I
beginning.
heard
Yeah.
what I heard was the Teacher's Pet podcast brought publicity to this case.
Mm.
Everyone forgot about it before, or maybe they just ignored it.
Yep.
Tell us about it.
Well, thanks for putting me in the spot. Yeah, so I'll just
It's-
recall
it's
everything that I can.
Literally there in the notes, bro.
And use the word alleged if need be.
You could have stuck Ash and then next to it, be like, you only was thinking about this one. You made it very unclear. Now it's open. All right, so what happened was in the 1980s, there was twins who were like rugby players, and they played for the Newtown Jets, and effectively in the Northern Beaches, they were in a place called Cromer. They grew up and they were like two-star footballers. They became teachers, and so one of those brothers, his name was Chris Dawson. He married his high school sweetheart called Lynette Dawson. She was just, they were both high school students at the time, and they got married and they ended up having two kids. So they had a house. He used to play for the Newtown Jets as a rugby player. So obviously, tall build, muscular, all that sort of stuff. There was an environment in the school where the teachers were sleeping with the students, and effectively, so it was pretty rough. This in the 1980s. And so what happened was this, Chris Dawson, who was a teacher in this particular high school, started getting a school student to come and babysit his daughters. And during that time, he, started a relationship with her while he was still with his wife. So she was, I think, 16 at the time. So, and then she sort of came from a bit of a broken family, and then ended up staying over, more than she probably should have. But yeah, they were in an open relationship. So the wife didn't really know any of that. She was quite oblivious. She loved her two kids and obviously adored Chris to the max, even though things were falling apart in their relationship. Chris, because he was a wealthy guy, had properties, cash, all that sort of stuff. He was considering divorce, but obviously he's got his twin brother and he's got an older brother as well. So he was, when he was trying to think about divorce, it's half, right? Half your assets sort of thing, like whatever that is. And so Chris was like, you know what? If she disappears or she dies suddenly, I keep all my stuff. So that's what he got into his head. So effectively one day he was trying to build up this whole plan, and she just disappeared. And when people started investigating and all that sort of stuff, he just went, oh yeah, she's just joined a religious cult, effectively, right? She's just disappeared. Mm. But then when people were talking to, Lynette's friends, they're like, no, she'd never just up and leave. She would always take her kids. Like, that's very unusual. She hasn't taken any of her clothes. She loved her clothes. She didn't take any of her makeup. She just left, just disappeared completely. So the stories are really, they were inconsistent with what he was trying to say, like with what Chris was trying to say. So that made the story a bit interesting. But back in the 1980s, he was a local football hero. It turns out the police constable or whatever it was at the time who was investigating this case about the disappearance was one of his rugby mates.
Oh,
right?
really?
So when he came and said, oh, like, where's Lynn? He's just like, oh, yeah, she just disappeared, mate. She's gone up to the Blue Mountains or whatever. And she's joined a cult and she just left everything and just took off. She was unhappy and she was a bit of a weirdo. And the cops just pretty much just killed off the case. So she was effectively disappeared since that time. Since then, as soon as she effectively disappeared, the girl, her name is Joanne Curtis, or she's known as JC, she came into this picture. So she pretty much moved in straight away permanently. She was the mother of like 2 young kids, effectively like the stepmom or whatever it is, of 2 young kids. They got married. They ended up having a daughter. So the weird parts were when they sold that house to move to whatever next suburb, the new people who were building the house, they were digging up a side of the house to extend or whatever. And so one of these days when they were extending, lo and behold, Chris turns up. He's like, "Oh, what are you guys digging?" And the new owners are like, "Why do you care? Like, it's not even your property anymore." It's like, "Oh, it's just interested, like just want to see where you guys are digging and all that sort of stuff, right?" So it got a bit sus because he was just like turning up to the property randomly, just trying to see what was going on. In 2018, so I think I was in the UK at that time. Yeah, so I was in the UK, and then someone came across to me and said, "Hey, look, have you heard about this podcast, The Teacher's Pet?" And I was like, "No." They're like, "Oh, it's from Australia." And I was like, "And like you gotta, like they're like, go and listen to it." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So, just played it in the background. I was like, Cromer, and it turns out my old manager from Hudson had just bought a piece of land in Cromer. So I was like, "I know Cromer." I'm like, "Yeah, my old manager just bought there, like, and he's building a house there, like as we speak." So like that suburb just rung a bell instantly. So I was like, "That's a small world." And then when they were talking about, like, when I was going through all the like areas, that this bloke who was a journalist for the Australian newspaper dug this story back up, just I think out of a hunch or whatever it was, and just went, "Look, this person left suspiciously, like just disappeared. No one's actually investigated." And then he just started this podcast to go, I think the journalist said, "I think that Lynette is dead. She was probably buried in the soil and her body's probably decomposed." So that was it. That was his prediction up front. And so as he did this podcast, he got this huge following, right? So throughout the 2018 sort of time. And then people who were listening into it from, 40 years ago, they started calling him up and going, "Actually, I've got more evidence that no one actually asked me." And they started uncovering more bits and pieces. So you had people like going, "Oh, there was a painter who came and said, when Lynette disappeared, this painter, like that Lynette had organized, she wanted both her kids painted, with a nice little background or whatever it was. I think she drew up the kids and she went away to her office to paint. And when she wanted to bring the final product, Lynette had already disappeared. The painter gave the painting to Chris, and Chris is like, "I don't want it. I didn't ask for this. Take it away." And it was like, it's like such a weird thing. And she's like, "Oh, like Lynette really wanted this. Like, why would she only organize it a couple of weeks ago?" It's really weird. Like, she was really excited about it. It was like little bits and this is the police had never asked any of this because it's like mates rates, right? So
Cut it down.
there's a lot of bits that were just really inconsistent. Turns out that, like it was super, like it was not like a character at all. It doesn't matter what it was. It was just a lot of things that I just got, were, muddled up. So look, in 2018, like late 2018, this started sort of beginning 2018, by December 2018, that was sort of the last episode, and Chris ended up getting arrested finally because the police reopened the case against him to say something's gone wrong. And in
because of the podcast?
Because of the podcast, yeah. So the podcast effectively reopened up everything. They found enough sort of evidence to go, something sus about Chris. And then Chris's 16-year-old wife at the time they've already had a divorce. She's started to come out and be like, "Oh no, he was talking about hiring a hitman and all that sort of stuff." So there was enough evidence now to come back. There's still no body, there's still no murder weapon, but there was enough evidence, like circumstantial stuff. And then 2019, they just announced the podcast has to stop because now he's in jail, and they just took everything down. They took all the episodes off. So I remember trying to tell Neela, going, "Oh, hey, you should re-listen to the Teacher's Podcast." And when I was trying to find it, it was all gone. And I was like, "That's weird."
The court case opened, right?
Yeah.
That's right. And now 2022, now like we're a couple of years into it, and I remember just getting the heart. I was like, "Oh, Chris Dawson." I just saw that. I was like, "Damn, like that's finally happened." And well, after all that evidence, the solicitor, the solicitor from the other side went, "There's no body, there's no whatever." But after all the evidence that was produced and all the background and everything else, so like the judge was like, "Yeah, mate, like you killed her. Like that was it. Like he got convicted for murder, after 40 years, and that's just because of a journalist picking it up." So I think it was a stellar outcome. Unfortunately, the 2 kids from Lynette, they grew up with, I think the kids were 4 and 6. They were young, so they don't remember the mum. So there's bits of their lives that they're going to have to side with the dad for a lot of it. But it's just terrible circumstances. So
That's rough, man. That's a great summary. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
thanks
good.
for putting me on spot. But yeah,
16. I saved 16 hours of my life.
But the podcast was actually really well done. It was
Yeah.
it actually, like I used to, it wasn't like 1 hour long, sometimes 40 minutes an hour, but the way they did it was actually really got you into it. That's why I think
Hmm.
got a lot of followings, and structurally, and the information in there was like, shit, everything is like, it's like it leaves you hanging to the next one. I think that's where it just became so popular.
Is it just a guy talking for the whole time?
He does get other
And-
people to snip in bits as well, like where possible. He does interview people, and he was just like, and he went back to the original constable, and he's like, "Oh, but why didn't you do this job?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't remember." And he was just, he was just brushing things off. You're like, "Mate, you wouldn't remember, like you didn't do your job."
Yeah.
Like,
I think when you apply the eyes of like the standards from 40 years after, you sit there and it takes one terrible job or two so obvious. It just seems like the community's like, let's throw it away. It doesn't matter. This guy's pretty famous. Everyone loves him, so leave it be.
Yeah.
But no, it's good, really good.
Yeah. Power of social media, hey?
Totally, yeah.
power of podcast, right? That's what I got out of it. So get the reach going.
Yeah, joining we'll be solving a lot more crimes.
It's a great to hear about all of that succinctly, but just a scary thing. And poor woman as well that, had to go through that, and obviously her family that's been involved in barracking for justice at the moment. So good to see justice served.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Good. Hey, let's move to a more positive tone. If you had $220 billion, what would you do with it? Because Mukesh Ambani is handing his $220 billion empire to his kids. Now, if this was you in his shoes, or in the kids' shoes, when are we going to Vegas?
Are you buying Vegas with that, or what are you doing with Vegas exactly?
He's $220 billion,
So, Mukesh Ambani, I think his background is mining, like his dad's mining. Shaz, you might know. But
no, so they started off with Dhirubhai Ambani. That was his dad. There's actually a movie made about him. There's a Bollywood movie called The Guru, played by Amitabh Bachchan. Not Amitabh, sorry, the son, Abhishek Bachchan, where they pretty much, he started off with nothing. So he used to just go around, the fabric, textiles, that's right. That's how it started off, just super low key. And then just build his empire from that, from textiles, because Gujarat was just real big in textiles back in the days.
Oh, is he Gujarati?
Yeah, they were Gujarati. And then just build an epic empire from there, and then they just diversified into all these sectors. So now they've got Mukesh Ambani's brother, Anil Ambani. He's got that whole Reliance business. It's quite big in India. Everyone knows Reliance,
it's like the Telstra of...
Yeah, exactly. That's right. And then Mukesh has got his own stuff. But they've just diversified into bulk things now. Yeah.
Well, the reason I asked this, right, there's a bit of debate on rich people handing over inheritance to kids. Some rich people are like, I'm not going to hand over inheritance because I want my kids to build their own. Some are like, I'll give everything to my kids, help them have a leg up and build their own empire from there. What would you do in this situation?
Well, I guess it depends, because you've just worked so hard to build a legacy. You want it to succeed. You don't want to see it go to waste.
Yeah.
Like, you work so hard for 20 years to get to a point, you just want it to go forward.
Yeah. So you're saying you would give it to Ari and Finn?
Well, no, depending on like what their interests are. So, that, I guess that's more of an ethnic thing. Not every, my dad's an engineer didn't mean I became an engineer to sort of carry forward his baton. But some businesses do that though. They're generational. Their forefathers did the same thing. And if that sort of fits their mold, then sure, by all means. But if his sons are not into that, then that business is going to fail. He'll just waste that 220 bill because he won't have the same drive, the same passion. So they might not be the appropriate people to hand over to.
Can I read a quote out of the CNN business part for that? So it says, I'd like to just cut Chaz off casually. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So it says, Barney, 65, set out his succession plan on Monday, telling shareholders in his Reliance Industries conglomerate that his 3 children are first among equals and are being mentored on a daily basis by our senior leaders, including myself. So they're already part and parcel of the business, right? So to hand them over, and he's already got a 51% shareholding, that means they've already gone ahead, and if they're happy with the business, right? They're happy with the structure. So it's not like randos where, like, take a like Gina Reinhardt's kids. They're like, oh yeah, my mum's rich. Give me my 100 million, and they're like, that's my 100 million. That's my inheritance. And Gina's just like, nah, mate, piss off. I bought your house. That's it. Like, you didn't earn this dollars. I earned this dollars.
Yeah.
Right. So I respect Gina's decision, and I respect this guy's decision. Like, if they're part and parcel, like Rupert Murdoch's, boys who are part of those companies are very high level executives. 100% they can be passed down because I understand they want to be part of that business. If they decide to sell it or take it forward or do whatever, that's upon them. But he's already, he's already managed them. He's taught them by leaders, by all these examples. 100%. Like, why not? I don't believe in giving kids just a free right, just of, hey, I've got 220, what's it, billion or million? Billion. I wouldn't be like, oh, hey, like, take 100 million, do whatever you want, go and, I would like, mate, like, pick up your slack and figure your life out, because I'm not going to give you cash. So I think that drives stupidity.
I think all that comes with how you raise your kids up as well, right? So it's not like your life's going to be a free ride. You got to raise them up with the right values, hard work and respect and everything like that. But on the flip side too, you also want to set them up to make sure they're not going to be bummed in the next life cycle too, right? So with that is, they should have access to the wealth, not just by right, but actually by earning it and accessing. Not like you should be your kids going in there and they can get whatever the hell they want, but there should be a way in processing that. But in terms of the business element and what that company is responsible for, so if it's, telecoms and everything like that, there's a responsibility to the wider nation, which should be then in the right hands. I'm not for anyone saying cut your kids off, you start from zero. I made $1 billion and now you go find yourself a job. Well, never got set up to go working in a Macca's at 14 years old, not like that. So they should have access to wealth 100% because that's legacy and family. But the other part where it's something that's more socially responsible, where you actually built a business that, needs to service the world, whatever it is, then that needs to be run accordingly. But I'm not for saying your kids are completely cut off. They have to have the right responsibilities.
Because the contrast to that was, I don't know if you guys know of Vijay Mallya. He was the
Kingfisher, right?
Yeah, owner of Kingfisher, and then Force India at F1, and
formerly known as Force India.
Yeah, but he was filthy rich, loaded, and then his son was just a party animal, just blew all the money. And look at him now. Compared to them Barneys, where they're just still going. Yeah.
What would you do, Kev? Let's pass it over.
I would definitely anything that I think I'm similar to you guys. Anything we work at is for our kids. Definitely won't tell my kids to start from scratch. But I think I build in little tax havens and structures and trusts to help them to create their own and always have a fallback option to. It's like that. It's like that story. So there's a fable. This is a bit dark fable, but it's basically this kid in village India who kept asking his parents for money, and his parents kept giving him money until one day his dad said, "I'm not giving you any more money. I've got millions in the bank, but I'm not giving you any more because you're just going to waste it away. I want you to do this yourself." And then his father ended up passing away, etc. So this guy tries to do everything by himself. And, he finally decides, I can't do anything more. I'm broke. I'm a failure in life. He goes to hang himself. And lo and behold, the pole that he hangs himself on in the house breaks and all his dad's money flows out because that was the structure that his dad set up, knowing his son's going to resort to that. So it's like that. Not that it's going to end up in something as dark as that, but I think always giving your kids a safety net is good to help them succeed, but definitely characters built through struggles.
There's some deep podcasts today.
Yeah.
I only had one beer. I feel like I need to go. Abby's on the Pepsi and he's just
What's in this Pepsi?
Abby's gone so mellow. It's like he just smashed down like 8 liters of kava. He's just like
no, my thought process is very similar to you guys. I think that's why we're all such good friends. You know, you kind of you don't want to, like, you know, part of the pun, because that was a freaking dark story, but you don't want to hang it over them. You don't want to hang that money over them.
He went there straight away. Damn.
Like, you know, obviously, you know what you're doing, you do for your kids, but you need to, you know, there needs to be like a degree of responsibility, you know, from your kids to know that they're going to use that money responsibly, because, you know, money can create people, but money can also destroy people. And, you know, if we're creating, like, you know, wealth for our kids, we need to make sure that what we're creating is not going to destroy them. So we've got to be, I think it's you know, it's a case by case scenario. Like, you know, we're doing it for our kids, but at the same token, there needs to be a bit of responsibility for them to accept it. And use it appropriately. If I feel like, you know, my child's not going to use it appropriately, then, you know, I'm not going to see them see them destroy themselves.
That's tight. That's deep, bro.
Because it comes down to what it is, right? There's 22 billion, or I'm not going to make 220 billion in my lifetime. So sit there and be like, yeah.
What are you talking about? Didn't you get that Satu Kodi thing, bro? Got no idea.
Doing it for the kids.
Hey, before we finish,
I
want to chat about something to you guys. So I follow this guy on Twitter. I listen to his podcast. He did something really cool in America. So he's an entrepreneur. He's built and sold many things, but he did a pretty cool concept that I think would be awesome to recreate in our kind of circle and in our wider network. So what he did was, he loves basketball, and he basically put an invite out there for entrepreneurs, people that build, business owners, media creators, to jump on in this weekend away with him. So like 12 people weekend away, where all they do is basically talk, network with each other, and they play basketball. Now, when I saw the concept come up a couple of weeks ago, I was like, really cool concept. But the feedback from it after the event, brilliant. Like, some of the feedback that the people have gone, obviously not knowing each other, but coming into a setting where people don't know each other, they're obviously united by the fact that they all play cricket. They're all doing different things. They're not all, you know, accountants, or they're not all commonly bonded through something, but they've been able to learn from each other. And they've all obviously played basketball there. But I'm thinking of a similar thing. So stress test this idea with me, and maybe we can go or no go live. So it's basically like a business / networking / growth camp with like leaders across any field who are also cricket lovers. So think of 22 people in a massive house, or massive 2 houses, on a property near a cricket field with cricket nets. Baseline expectation is no egos, no BS, no D heads. So if people want to come there, you know, comparing D sizes, then you're out. So that's his baseline expectation. Sorry, go Ash.
No, I said I'm out then. Sorry. Catch you in the next trip.
So how it would work is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Just think of it like a cricket trip with something deeper. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, everyone gets there. A net session to get everyone to bond, dinner, some drinks. Saturday, some kind of morning activity, and then, you know, you have your cricket, lunch, cricket, so the 2 innings split up, and then Saturday you wrap up and leave. But basically, everyone then over the weekend presents a 15-minute session on anything that they're good at. So you're learning from everyone. And basically for 1 to 1.5K each, so obviously you need money to run something like this. It'll cover your housing, your cricket stuff, get a chef for the weekend. I'm just replicating what these guys did, but they were like 10K each. You get a chef for the weekend. You have your housing, your venue, your gear, stuff to put it all together. And the purpose is everyone teaches everyone something. You'll ideally have people who own companies, people who are senior leaders at companies, small business owners, creatives, social influencers. This event that they had, so he was meant to just have it with his network, but he reached out to people outside his network. He managed to get Mr. Beast. I don't know if you guys know Mr. Beast from YouTube. He came to the event. Hassan Minaj, the comedian, ended up coming to the event as well for the weekend. I just thought it was really cool because it's a concept that's pretty attractive, that is unique, that not like basically no one's doing it from a cricket sense, but it's also cool for us as well, right? Get to know some different people through different networks and expand this circle that we have. So what do you guys think? I'll share the tweet. I think I shared the tweet on there. I'll share the link later as well. But it's a cool concept. What do y'all think?
I like it. It's different.
Yeah, it's different.
Nothing like we've had before. And I guess what the bait is, obviously everyone's got a common interest outside of what they're going there to do, which kind of keeps everyone gelled together.
Yeah.
Would I go to it? Yeah, I would. That'd be interesting. Again, if it's open learning and you have a common interest, you're not like you're going to be sitting there quiet in the corner not doing anything. But,
that's right.
Yeah, it's probably a new concept in Australia. I don't know if anyone does it, but I've never heard of that. But yeah, sounds good to me.
And they were saying, I think this is like one of the guys wrote who attended it. Some of the observations he made was just astounding, like for successful people. Like one of the observations was like, he went there, he obviously has a few drinks, but he noticed that a lot of the people don't really drink a lot and some people don't drink at all. And so he just had this internal like reflection, like all these people are either not drinking or they've just had 2 drinks for the night and they've gone to sleep. So that made him think, all right, why are all these people doing that? Like, is there something that is a correlation between that and who they are in terms of how they operate? The second thing is he noticed that despite being super successful, they're super family oriented. Like when people started talking about the kids or their wives, like everyone was like wowed or talking, like they basically got involved because it was such a big part of their lives. And again, that made him realize actually, to be successful, there's this media myth that you need to be this hustler to sacrifice everything. But it really just reinstilled some things in him that, was really cool operating and talking to other people. So I think it's just, I don't know. It feels like a bit of a gimmick, but I feel like there'll be a lot we can learn depending on getting the right crew as well. Obviously, it'd have to be curated because,
and I think that's a hard part, attracting the right people to this.
But that's how you get them through flushing out not the 1K but the 10K mark, right? I think if you say 1.5K, you attract a lot of nobodies really. And if you want to attract higher quality people that got money, people that made it, 10K should be a bare minimum. So I think there's a different caliber of people that will turn up because you don't want regular Joes turning up there going, oh, I want to really learn something today. It's not a Tony Robbins conference. It's that type of getting the elite for the elite, right? So, yeah.
I was going with my delegation authority internally here, bro. Anything about 1.5K gets approved by Ashby.
Save for 10 weeks and it'll be good, mate. So
Kev's not going to his own event. probably all of us here too.
I think
why like I said, 1.5 does maybe do like a junior mid senior thing, but I think 10.5 should be a minimum then for that.
I mean, they can work with 10K because they've sold companies for $10 million. I think the thing is we'd curate this list. So what he did was he had applications he didn't expect to get many, but he had about 50 to 100 applications, he said. And he basically just went through and curated a list based on getting a different diversity of group. So he didn't want to get everyone from the same industry, everyone who did the same thing, just get a different, like what he did, like a comedian, a person who's built a company, a person who's a YouTube influencer, just different brands of people to come and teach each other. So it's cool. Cool. Green light.
Think about it first in terms of what's the offering. I would say I'd love to give it a go, and then instead think about who, what, how.
The other thing is playing a game of cricket. Like, I mean, it's pretty long, right? So, like, unless you do like a T20 format or something else. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So
it won't be a 70 over, bro. We don't have the fitness.
5 day test. So yeah, no, look, I think it'd be interesting to see that come through. Like, I reckon we should like a 10-10 sort of thing, like 10 overs, whatever it is. But and then you can sort of rotate people, see how they interact with different things, and yeah.
Nice. I like it. All right, guys.
Cool. Nice one.
It's been real.
Sounds good.
Been an emotional roller coaster in this.
Yeah, I know.